I'm ready. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam, Rasulullah, ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala, thumma amma ba'd. To proceed. So today, inshallah, we will start al-mashaqqa tajlib al-taysir. Hardship begets facility. Hardship begets facility. This is the fourth major legal maxim. Which ones did we finish? The first one, al-umur bimaqasidiha, or al-a'mal bin-niyat. Deeds are judged by their intentions. The second one, al-yaqin la yazul bil-shak, which is certainty is not overruled by doubt. The third one, la darar wa la darar, there is no harm or reciprocation of harm. No harm or reciprocation of harm. This is the fourth major legal maxim. Al-mashaqqa tajlib al-taysir, hardship begets facility. Hardship begets facility. So, inshallah, we will try to finish this in, I never actually, I can never predict. For some reason, I can't face myself. I don't know, like, what is wrong with me. Like, I can't predict. Every time I told you we'll finish it in this number of sessions, we didn't. So I should probably quit doing that. But anyway, we will try to finish it in 5 to 6 sessions. And why are we taking too long? Because al-mashaqqa tajlib al-taysir is actually like a very nuanced qaida. Because if you say al-mashaqqa tajlib al-taysir, hardship begets facility, a lot of things need to be explained here. Because what do you mean by this? This is quite complicated. What is al-mashaqqa, what is al-taysir? And isn't the deen, to begin with, about takalif? And takalif includes some mashaqqa, taklif, like the burden of obligations. Doesn't that include some mashaqqa? And so today we will go over some definitions. And next time, so it will take us, a long time to get to the branches of this qaida, because today we will be going over some definitions. And we'll talk about al-rukhsa and al-mashaqqa and al-azima and al-taysir. We'll talk about rukhsa, dispensation or concession. We'll talk about al-mashaqqa, which is hardship, and which hardship. And we will talk about al-azima, resolute rulings, I guess, original rulings, unmitigated original rulings. That's the best translation I came up for rukhsa, unmitigated original rulings. For azima, unmitigated original rulings. And then next time we will start to talk about asbab al-takhfif, asbab or reasons or causes for takhfif, for concessions, for dispensations. When are we expected to be more lenient? When is the Sharia more lenient? And where is the Sharia more lenient? Like disease, like travel, like an-naqs, which means, like things like al-junoon and al-ighma and things of that nature. And we will discuss all of these things, until we discuss at-targhib fil Islam, basically to motivate people to convert to Islam. That is min asbab al-takhfif in Sharia. So we will have 10 causes for takhfif or concessions, dispensations. The last one will be motivating people to convert to Islam, at-targhib fi al-Islam. So all of this will start a discussion of asbab al-takhfif next time, but we will not be able to finish them in one session, because some things will need to be, because where else, in what other subject are we talking about these things in detail? Actually, not even in usul al-fiqh are we talking about these things in detail or in sufficient detail. So we will need to be talking about these things in some detail, so it may take us 2 sessions. So we will have 3 sessions before we get into the subsidiary maxims or the branches of this qaida. So this is the third Sa'di qaida. The third Sa'di qaida. And when I begin by saying this, of course, this is not a Sa'di qaida. And of course, Sheikh Sa'di rahimahullah was not one of the first people to talk about Qawaaid al-Fiqhiyya, but being that this is a Hanbali course, and being that Hanbalis don't have, sort of they were a little bit late to this, or later to this than other madhahib. So the build-up within the madhab in terms of authorship, in terms of writing al-Qawaaid al-Fiqhiyya, took a little bit of time. So we don't have like Ibn Rajab's book, despite the fact that this would be our greatest Qawaaid book, and it is a great book, but it doesn't really follow the same methodology and arrangement, and it has a lot of dawabit, regulators that are not Qawaaid. And the phrasing also of Ibn Rajab, he favored clarity over brevity, or he favored clarity over eloquence. I shouldn't say that. Like, brevity, clarity over brevity. And yeah, so basically, his qaida would be like, you would have to write it. It's like a long paragraph. So the other authors would use like short aphorisms, like to express the qawaid. But Ibn Rajab would take his time to explain the qaida in the definition of the qaida, or in the actual name of the qaida. Anyway, so Shaykh al-Sa'di has a book on al-Qawaaid al-Fiqhiyya that looks a little bit more like a book on Qawaaid al-Fiqhiyya, even though he himself did not follow the same tartib or the same arrangement of al-Qawaaid al-Fiqhiyya, starting with the 5 legal maxims and the branches of the 5 legal maxims, and then talking about the other ones, the minor maxims. But his book is a little bit more Qawaaid-like than other books in the Hanbali madhab. So Shaykh al-Borno, rahimahullah, who is the most famous Qawaaid scholar in sort of modern times, he said this about this qaida, when he was trying to explain this qaida. Of course, he did not limit his Qawaaid authorship to Hanbali madhab, but this is applicable to any madhab. This explanation is applicable to any madhab. He says, whenever al-mashaqqa tajlib al-taysir, he's trying to explain now what hardship begets facility means. He says, whenever the application of legal rulings results in undue hardship upon the obligated individual, that's the mukallaf. The obligated individual is the mukallaf. So whenever the application of legal rulings results in undue hardship upon the obligated individual, whether in their person or wealth, the Sharia provides alleviation in a manner that remains within their capacity without difficulty or distress. Without difficulty or distress. So he is trying to say that when certain rulings bring about hardship to al-mukallaf or to the obligated individual, the Sharia will try to mitigate the distress and the hardship by making concessions and dispensations and bringing facility to the ruling. Now, so these alleviations will be called what? Rukhas. We will call them rukhas, right? Dispensations, concessions. I mean, concessions, dispensations is how they usually translate rukhas. These are the mitigations that are installed by the Sharia to relieve people from hardship. So these rukhas, although these rukhas will be contingent on excuses, we're talking about particular dispensations. When this topic comes to mind, you think of what? Shortening the prayers, right? You think of things of that nature. So you think of unusual circumstances, like travel, for instance, that will bring about facility, like disease, like travel, things like that, that will bring about facility. However, it's important in the beginning of this to point out that the Sharia itself is based on, facility. So even the azaim, they do consider this. So there is no hardship, Allah did not place hardship on you in this religion. So the Sharia itself, the azaim, have this built in, have this concept built into them. So it's not only about dispensations and concessions, it's also the azaim. The azaim have this concept built into them. These are, azaim would be mean, and we will discuss the definition of azima, but these are the unmitigated original rulings, including jihad, which includes sacrifice of the life and wealth and everything. But even that, this qaida is built into every hukm min al-ahkam al-shar'iyya, because if you don't make a jihad for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are the alternatives? The alternatives will be, domination by your enemies, and that domination by your enemies will cost you your deen, your life, your honor, your wealth, everything. So what is lighter then? Is it lighter to, make jihad so that you could preserve your deen, your life, your wealth, and your honor, or to let yourself be dominated and to, sacrifice all of that just for the ease and comfort, or for your cowardice? So azaim have this concept built into them, including the biggest azima, that is jihad, sacrifice of the self and the property. And that is because the Sharia, as Imam Ibn al-Qayyim says, مبناها وأساسها على الحكم ومصالح العباد في المعاش والمعاد والعاجل والآجل، وهي عدل كلها ورحمة كلها وحكمة كلها ومصالح كلها. So all of the Sharia is based on wisdom and the benefits of the people in this life and the one to come. And it is all about mercy, it is all about justice, it is all about wisdom, and it is all about benefit of the people, the benefit of al-ibad, or the benefit of the people. So that is the Sharia in its entirety, including the azaim. So the alleviations that are embedded into the Sharia are innumerable. So sometimes when we talk about concessions, we have concessions that are already built in, that are known, so you don't need to go to a mufti and ask them about it. So you don't need to go to a mufti and ask them, should I shorten the prayer during travel? Combining is a different thing because it depends on your mufti in this case, but shortening would be different. So you don't have to go to your mufti and ask them about shortening the prayers. And there are many other things, that if you're pregnant and you're not able to fast, you don't need to ask a mufti if you can break your fast, or if you're sick or something like this. So there are things that are built in. You don't need to ask a mufti about them. But there are certain concessions and dispensations that depend on ijtihad, and approximation, and some level of judgment that would require a mufti. So these are two different types: the ones that are built in, and the ones that require some ijtihad. When it comes to the built-in ones, we have many examples, such as, like we said, shortening the prayers and things of that nature. It also, some of the embedded ones that are not even considered to be rukhas, but they are embedded into the ahkam themselves, would be lightening the congregational prayers. So the Prophet ﷺ advised that when we pray for the people, we lighten the prayer. مَنْ أَمَّ بِالنَّاسِ فَلْيُخَفِّفْ. So whoever leads the people in prayer, let him lighten the prayer. So lightening the congregational prayers. Lightening the congregational prayers is built in for takhfif. This is not a rukhsa per se, but it is a facility that is built into the hukm for takhfif, to lighten the congregation prayers. The Hanbalis say that if you are praying for the people, then you maintain the prayer at the beginning of perfect. beginning of perfect is what? So you have sufficient, you have beginning of perfection, and then you have the end of perfection. So when it comes to tasbih, what is sufficient for tasbih? One time. What is the beginning of perfect? 3 times. And then like perfect would be like 10 times, whatever. But beginning of perfect for tasbih is 3 times. So when you are an imam, how many tasbihs will you do in ruku' and sujood? 3 tasbihs. So you say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, and that's it. Because that is the beginning of perfection. So that is prescribed for an imam. So built-in facility here. Excusing minor dozing off, for instance, light sleep, minor dozing off or light sleep is excused if you're seated. If you're sitting down waiting for Salat al-Isha and you doze off, or you have like a light sleep while seated, then that is excused. Then why is it excused? Because often people doze off while waiting for Salat al-Isha. And yeah, so some dispensations that apply universally when their cause exists would be shortening prayers during travel, and others, like we said, arise due to specific or individual or communal circumstances. And when they arise and they cause hardship, then we will have the subsidiary maxim that we will cover, inshallah, not next time, not the time after, but maybe maybe after Ramadan. The subsidiary maxim of إذا ضاق الأمر اتسع. إذا ضاق الأمر اتسع. So this is basically not built in, but when the matter becomes constrained, when the matter becomes constrained, how did we translate it? When the matter becomes constrained, they expand. When matters become constrained, they expand. Try to remember, like in English, try to remember one translation so that you could memorize them in English. So when the matters become constrained, they expand. And that will take some ijtihad. In Sharh al-Kawkab al-Munir, Imam ibn al-Najjar says many rulings fall under this maxim. So he will try to now talk about this maxim a little bit and talk, about some examples. So I'll just read this quickly because it's helpful to listen to it. Many rulings fall under this maxim, including in acts of worship, tayammum, sitting in the prayers, shortening the prayers, combining the prayers, exemptions from attending Friday and congregational prayers. And you will find those exemptions in Hanbali madhab in particular to be, more widely used. You will find more concessions, and they'll find them more widely used in the Hanbali madhab. Why? Because they demand congregation prayers. Congregation prayers in the Hanbali madhab are required, aside, which is different from the 3 other madhab. So when something is required, you will have to basically create concessions because sometimes it's not easy. So he mentions here advancement of zakat, various alleviations in acts of worship, transactions, marriages, criminal penalties. He says even the very idea of acting on assumption when certainty is unattainable is takhfif min al-shara. So the shara is not demanding you to act on certainty. Shara is allowing you, the lawgiver is allowing you to act on dhann, to act on assumption. Because as a human being, imagine if we are required to act on certainty in everything. That would be quite burdensome. But you're acting on assumption. Some other examples include the permissibility of niyaba in Hajj. Niyaba in Hajj, which is to deputize or to have someone do it on your behalf, deputizing another for Hajj and for stoning the Jamarat. One of the takhfifat is the more distant guardian marrying off a young girl. Like if a suitor, comes for a young girl, and a distant the close guardian is not in town. They're traveled. They're far away. They can't be reached. So can a more distant guardian marry her off if they fear that she would basically lose the opportunity? Yes, they can, and that's min takhfifat al-shara also. Witnesses, the idea that لا تقبل شهادة الفاسق, or the testimony of al-fasiq, wicked people, is not accepted, right? Fusaq, wicked people, their testimony is not accepted. But like, what if we're all fusaq? Which is, yeah. I wouldn't say that we are all fusaq, but we're not too far away. But what if we all don't basically meet the criteria? Then we will have to accept a testimony of the most suitable people. The most suitable people, their testimony will have to be accepted. Otherwise, if you don't accept testimony of anyone unless they meet the criteria, then that will lead to ضياع الحقوق, loss of rights. They even allowed non-Muslims to testify, like during travel, for instance. We know but this is still controversial. It's the Hanbali position that they are allowed to testify on wasiyah or wills during travel. Then certainly the evidence for this qaida, there are many. And among the evidences of this qaida in Sharh al-Kawkab al-Munir, Imam ibn al-Najjar says, وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ, for instance, and he has not laid upon you in religion any hardship, and the many things that indicate alleviation, the alleviations granted to this ummah versus other ummah, numerous concessions. There are examples of numerous concessions to mitigate hardship in the Sharia. So these are evidences by istiqra, or by the inductive investigation of the Sharia. You will have explicit statements. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. We said, الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا. Now Allah has lightened your burden, for He knows that there is weakness in you. He mentions the reduction of the 50 prayers. Then he mentions يريد الله بكم اليسر, Allah intends ease for you. Then he mentions about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَيَضَعُ عَنْهُمْ أَسْرَهُمُ الْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ, and he relieves them of their burden and the shackles that were upon them. And he mentions لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها, Allah does not burden a soul beyond its capacity. And he mentions some of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, such as وَعِثْتُ بِالْحَنِيفِيَّةِ السَّمْحَةِ, I was sent with the Hanifiyya, that is Hanifiyya, we talked about this, uprightness, let's say uprightness. Samha would be lenient and easy, Hanifiyya, or uprightness. So, and that is Sahl al-Mumtad, that is basically the beauty of the deen. The beauty of the deen is Hanifiyyatun Samha. It is lenient and easy, it's still upright. So you're not compromising on the uprightness for ease, and you're not compromising on the ease for uprightness. It's easy and upright. And then the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, يَسِّرُوا وَلَا تُعَسِّرُوا وَبَشِّرُوا وَلَا تُنَفِّرُوا, make things easy and don't make them difficult, to give glad tidings and don't repel people away. Aisha described the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as ما خير رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بين أمرين قط إلا اختار أيسرهما ما لم يكن إثما. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم has never been given the choice between two matters except that he chose the easier one. If it wasn't given, it is not sinful. Given, it is not sinful. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam clearly, emphasized this so many times to his Sahaba, that this deen is not about tormenting yourself, that Allah doesn't want you to torment yourself, doesn't want hardship for you. So when Uqba ibn Amir's sister made a vow to make Hajj, walking, the Prophet ﷺ said, إن الله لا يصنع بشقاء أختك شيئا فلتحج راكبة وتكفر يمينها. So Allah does not benefit from your sister's hardship. Allah does not benefit from your sister's hardship in any way. Let her perform Hajj riding and expiate her oath. In another narration, indeed, Allah has no need for your sister to torture herself. And Allah said that. Allah said that ما يفعل الله بكم إن شكرتم وآمنتم وكان الله شاكرا عليما. What would Allah do with tormenting you if you shakartum and amantum? You're grateful and you have faith. وكان الله شاكرا عليما. So Allah does not want hardship for us. So you may say, so why did the Prophet ﷺ then say to Aisha, أجرك على قدر نصبك? So your reward will be commensurate with your hardship. So this is not to seek hardship. This is not to be looking for hardship. But if there was some difficulty, if there was some burden in some of the takalif, if you had to do a little bit more, if you're from Indonesia and you have to make Hajj, then أجرك على قدر نصبك in this case, versus someone who's from a Ta'if and will make Hajj. So if you're from Egypt and you make Hajj, this is different from someone from a Ta'if, and someone from Indonesia, different from someone from Egypt. So that is the ajr ala qadr al-nasab. But this is not basically to seek nasab, to seek a hardship. In addition to this, when the Prophet ﷺ said, Diyarakum bani salama, diyarakum tuktab atharukum. Diyarakum bani salama, diyarakum tuktab atharukum. So stay in your homes, Bani Salama. Stay in your homes. You will be rewarded for every footstep. You'll be rewarded for every footstep. He said this to Bani Salama when they were planning on moving next to the masjid. And he said he didn't want the people to desert to the outskirts of Medina to move next to the masjid. And this creates a lot of problems. It creates security problems. And it creates civilizational problems. You need urban sprawl. You need to expand at the end of the day. It creates also cost problems for people around them, so that the prices will go up and will be prohibitive for people around the masajid and things of that. It creates all kinds of problems. So for this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to relieve us from this burden. You don't have to, but here in America, if you're able to live close to a masjid, you want to try to do that because, here, the commute is sometimes prohibitive. So I really like the fact that in certain places here in America, in certain states in America, they do have, like you go to Texas, for instance, and you will have the masjid in the middle, and you will have all of the neighbors, pretty much all of the neighbors are Muslim. Around certain popular masajid in Texas, I've seen this. First time I saw this was the Irving Masjid in Dallas. But actually, even prior to this, in Virginia, there were some communities like this, even prior to the communities in Texas. So that's certainly lovely. In New Jersey, it's difficult, but certainly in other places, it may be much easier. Or maybe in New Jersey, it's not too difficult, inshallah. Yeah. Then, so let's talk about a little bit about al-rukhsa. So do we have enough evidences on this qaida? I don't think that there is, that you need any more evidence. You have enough evidences on qaida. So the next would be to start on talking about the and benefits, or the al-Qawaaid, rukhsa and azima. So what is rukhsa to begin with? So basically, I'm quoting here Rawdat al-Nadhr. So this is Imam ibn Qudama's book on Usul al-Fiqh. And like I said, there is a lot of overlap between Qawa'id and Usul. So we borrow a lot from Usul al-Fiqh. You know, Sharh al-Kawkab al-Munir does talk about Qawa'id a lot, you know, and it's a book on Usul. Sharh al-Kawkab al-Munir is not a Qawa'id book. We quote it a lot because it does talk about Qawa'id. So in Rawdat al-Nadhr, there's a chapter on Azima and Rukhsa. And he said about Azima is al-Qasd al-Mu'akkad, firm resolution. Rukhsa would be what? As-Suhula wal-Yusr, ease and leniency. So القصد المؤكد or firm resolution ولقد عهدنا إلى آدم فنسي ولم نجد له عزما. You know, Allah said about Adam that we did not find him to have great determination, or we did not find in him determination, azman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى when you have decided, then rely upon Allah. But when it comes to the terminology of the scholars, so Azima and Rukhsa would be easy when it comes to the language. Rukhsa is leniency and ease, you know, Suhula wal Yusr. Azima is determination, and the Qasd al-Mu'akkad, resolute determination. But when it comes to the terminology now, then it is a little bit different. Azima would be الحكم الثابت من غير مخالفة دليل شرعي. وقيل ما لزم العبادة بإيجاب الله تعالى. Azima is a ruling that is established without opposing any legal evidence. Some define it as that which has been made obligatory upon individuals by Allah the Exalted. الحكم الثابت من غير مخالفة دليل شرعي. It is the ruling that is established without opposing any legal evidence, meaning the original unmitigated ruling. Rukhsa is the ruling that is established in opposition to some legal evidence. You know, so al-mubih ma'a qiyam al-hadar, that which brings about permissibility in the presence of the prohibition. So al-azima, when I tell you, you know, fast in Ramadan, is this in opposition to any dalil shara'i? No. So this is the original unmitigated ruling. When I tell you pray 4 rak'ahs, dhuhr 4 rak'ahs, pray dhuhr 4 rak'ahs, is this in opposition to any legal evidence? No. ثابت من غير مخالفة دليل شرعي. So this is a ruling that is established. This is the original ruling, the original unmitigated ruling without the exceptions. And then the rukhsa will be the mitigated ruling. It is established in the presence of an opposing dalil. So when I tell you you're hamil, you're pregnant, you don't have to fast. Is this mukhalafat? Is there like a opposing legal evidence here? Yes. You know, kutiba alaykum siyam. Fasting has been prescribed for you. So we're making an exception from this dalil. So this is a mitigated ruling now, not the original unmitigated ruling, not the azima, not the original unmitigated ruling. This is the rukhsa, the dispensation, the mitigated ruling. And he says, الرخصة إباحة المحظور مع قيام الحاضر وما ثبت على دليل شرعي لمعارض راجح. So rukhsa would be defined as the permissibility of a prohibited act while the prohibition remains in principle. Another definition states that it is a ruling that contradicts an established legal proof due to a stronger counteracting shara'i factor. A ruling is not called a rukhsa if it does not contradict any legal evidence. A ruling is not called a rukhsa if it does not contradict any legal evidence, even if it involves ease, such as the non-obligation of fasting in Shawwal or the permissibility of neutral acts or mubahat. So he's trying to say here that can you call the non-obligation of fasting in Shawwal rukhsa? can you call basically the permissibility of eating cucumbers rukhsa? No. So, because where is the legal evidence to the opposite, to the contrary? There's no legal evidence to the contrary. So, you know, that which is basically neutral, that which is ثابت بالبراءة الأصلية is not called رخصة. ثابت بالبراءة الأصلية means established on the basis of the original non-liability, original permissibility, original non-liability. You can't call all of that stuff رخص. You can't call all of these mubahat رخص. رخصة is in particular that which is established in opposition to dalil, legal evidence, for an overriding dalil, the dalil. But things that are not established in opposition to the dalil, like the non-obligation of fasting in Shawwal, are not called rukhas. However, he says, can you majazan, tajawuzan? Tajawuzan or majazan means what? You could always either say it means metaphorically. Yeah, you could say metaphorically. Can you metaphorically say that these are rukhas? Yeah, metaphorically, you could say, like, you would be recognizing here the takhfif that was given to this ummah versus other ummah, other ummahs. Anyway, versus other ummah. So if you're just saying that all of these are tarkhisat min al-Sharia, just to recognize that this ummah has been granted a lot of ease and facility, then that's fine. But these are not rukhas in the technical sense. Take, for example, tayammum. Tayammum is permitted in certain conditions. Tayammum is permitted if wudu will cause you harm, right? Tayammum is also permitted if you don't have water. Which one is called rukhsa? It is called rukhsa when water is present. Because then there is, but when water is not present, is that rukhsa? No, because it's an act of necessity. It's basically like ma'juz anhu. Water here, you don't have the capacity to use water because there is no water to begin with. So it's a rukhsa when it brings about ease to the mukallaf, to the obligated individual. So types of concessions here, and you know, like sometimes I borrow from other books, which is completely fine. So Imam al-Izz ibn Abd al-Salam is a Shafi'i scholar. He basically mentions 6 different types of concessions. They are applicable to our madhab as well. So the takhfifat al-Sharia, according to him, and then we will mention a 7th that studrika alayhi, that were amended to his 6 takhfifat. So he says, takhfif al-isqat. Takhfif al-isqat is the concessional reduction. No, I shouldn't say reduction. Isqat is dropping. Isqat is, No, dismissal, maybe. Yeah, so it's like complete dismissal. So you don't have to pray for like a Jum'ah. You don't have to fast. You don't have to go to Hajj. So it's complete dismissal. That is takhfif al-isqat. Because the reduction is tanqis. So the next one is takhfif al-tanqis. I call the diminishment, concessional diminishment, taklif al-tanqis. That's like shortening the prayers, tanqis, reduction, tanqis. The third one is takhfif al-ibdal, concessional substitution, al-ibdal, substitution. So to replace wudu and ghusl with tayammum, that is substitution. So you can't say this is reduction. It's not like you're gonna wash 3 limbs instead of 5. It's substitution. Okay. And then you have تخفيف التقديم, concessional advancement, such as when you pray Dhuhr, Asr with Dhuhr, Jam'a Taqdeem, combine the prayers and advance the Asr to the time of Dhuhr, such as when you advance the Zakat. And why is it Taqfif? Because like your Zakat due date is in Shawwal, for instance, and then, you know, in Rajab, you find someone deserving and you're not that rich to give them sadaqah. You want to give them from your zakat, but your zakat due date is in Shawwal. The Sharia allowed you to give them some of your zakat that will be due in Shawwal, to give it to them in Rajab, and then subtract it from your zakat when you know the zakat due date comes. So it's a rukhsa. So this is concessional advancement, concessional postponement, تخفيف التأخير. And then this is when you don't fast in Ramadan and you because of whatever reason, and then you defer it to some other time. And when you combine the prayers, sometimes you do advance one for, you know, and sometimes you defer one. So this is تخفيف التأخير. Another one is تخفيف الترخيص. تخفيف الترخيص is basically to, like, let's take some examples. One of the examples, for instance, is to use like wiping, and instead of cleaning oneself after you use the bathroom, you know, instead of cleaning oneself with water, which is sort of more complete, I guess, wiping would suffice. So this is tarkhis, permitting the consumption of impure substances for medical treatment. Permitting the consumption of impure substances for medical treatment. Is this Hanbali? No, it's not Hanbali. So this, and I put this between brackets for you to pay attention, that this is based on his madhab, al-Shafi'i. This is not Hanbali. So Hanbalis and Malikis don't have that. Hanafis and Shafi'is, they allow that. Hanbalis and Malikis are stricter when it comes to medical treatments and the use of impure substances, medical treatment. And then there are details, but anyway, that's in general. Then he also says that drinking alcohol to relieve choking, uttering words of disbelief under duress. Drinking alcohol to relieve choking. He mentions this, but he doesn't mention drinking alcohol for thirst, because, you know, Hanbalis, and I think that they as well, would not recognize this to be allowable, because they don't. Why is it? Because they don't think it relieves thirst. They think that when you drink alcohol, you become more thirsty. It doesn't relieve thirst. And then it's like drinking water. Does it relieve thirst? You drink from the ocean. Does it relieve thirst? No. You get more thirsty. So the one that has been amended is تخفيف التغيير. تخفيف التغيير, such as altering the form of prayer due to fear. So it's not ibdal. Ibdal is when you do away with ghusl and tayammum and use tayammum. But taghyir is modification, takhfif by modification. So the prayer, the hay'ah of the prayer in time of fear, like confrontation, is modified, and that is a form of takhfif. Now, so what is the ruling of using rukhas? We know in Allah yuhibbu an tu'ta rukhasuh kama yuhibbu an tu'ta azaimuhu. Allah loves that his concessions are taken as much as he loves that his sort of azaim are taken or performed. So azaim would be the original unmitigated rulings or unmitigated original rulings. So we know this, but there are 4 different rulings for rukhas, to accept a rukhsa. Of course, if it is not a rukhsa, then it's haram. but we're not talking about this. We're talking about a real rukhsa. There is a real rukhsa. Then what is the ruling of taking that rukhsa? So it could be obligatory, recommended, permissible, or khilaf al-awla, you could say suboptimal, or on the border of disliked, somewhat disliked, suboptimal, disliked. So these are the 4 rulings. Why are we not saying haram? Because we're talking about a real rukhsa. We're not talking about a made-up rukhsa. We're talking about a real rukhsa. So obligatory to take the rukhsa. When is it obligatory to take the rukhsa? To eat maita, if you're starving and you're going to die, then you eat maita, you eat carrion to save your life. And this would be called, this will create a problem for them. If it is obligatory, then it's azima, right? So they say it is azima in one respect and rukhsa in one respect. It's azima in one respect and rukhsa is one. It's an obligation. So you will be a sinner if you don't eat. If you starve to death because you don't want to eat pork, you will be a sinner. Right? Yes, that's all that's available. And you starve yourself to death. So this is an obligation here. When is it recommended? So when it is an obligation, like fasting in Ramadan, for instance. Did I mention this or not? Yeah, I mentioned it. So fast in Ramadan to save your life. It's an obligation. It's an obligation to break your fast in Ramadan to save your life. So in this case, it's a rukhsa in one respect because it is meant for your ease. And it is a azima in one respect because it's an obligation. It's recommended, the rukhsa would be recommended to take, like shortening the prayers, like breaking your fast during travel. Breaking your fast during travel, not to save your life, but breaking your fast during travel. The Hanbalis would say breaking your fast during travel is recommended regardless. The 3 other madhahib would say it's preferred to fast if fasting does not cause you hardship. The Hanbalis will say, and there are, both sides will quote a hadith and everything. So, but that's a disagreement between the madhahib. If you're traveling, is it preferable to break your fast or not? The Hanbalis will say it is preferable regardless. All of them will say it's preferable if there is hardship entailed. But the Hanbalis will say, just simply because you're traveling, it's preferable. Now you have permissible rukhsa, like bay' al-araya, for instance, certain types of biyu'ah that were allowed by exception. Bay' al-araya is when you exchange ripe, when you exchange fruits on the trees for dates, for instance. And the dates on the trees or what is it? It's called dates also. They're called dates, right? Anyway, so dates are the dried dates, when they are on the trees. I guess they don't have a word for it in English. Huh? No, yeah, but I'm talking about English. I think it's still dates. So the dates on the trees versus the dried dates. Can you do this exchange? No, by default, you cannot. You cannot, because dates for dates, this has to be equal for equal, and how could you assure equality? You cannot assure equality at all. This is khars. This is by estimation. This is how, this tree has this much. And in addition to this, you can't trade dry date for rotab or for fresh dates. I can't, because because they change. You can't assure equality, because when the rotab, the fresh dates, dry out, they lose volume. Okay, but this was made permissible in certain cases. Araya was made permissible in certain cases. Sometimes poor people would desire to eat fresh dates, and then all they have at home is dry dates. So they can't purchase the fresh dates, and all they have at home is dry dates. So they take the dried dates, and exchange them for fresh dates on the palm trees. So despite the fact that this would be impermissible by default, because it would entail riba, not anything short of that, it would entail riba. The Prophet ﷺ allowed it for them to be able to enjoy the fresh dates without having the money to pay for it. So this is a permissible rukhsa. There are certain rukhas that are preferred to avoid, preferable to avoid. So preferable to avoid, they will give examples for preferable to avoid what? What do you think is preferable to avoid? Combining during travel if you're not moving. So you reached your destination, but you're still going to be there for like 3 days or 2 days. Certainly there is much disagreement here about the duration, but anyway, you're within the duration that everybody considers to be traveling still. But you arrive to your destination. So should you be combining the prayers? So it's suboptimal. Preferable to pray on time. Preferable to pray on time. Shortening is preferable or suboptimal? Shortening is preferable. So it's preferable. Imam ibn Hazm would consider shortening to be an obligation. The Hanafis the Hanafis are strict about shortening as well. So no, the Hanafis, they only allow combining for Hajj, but shortening, they demand shortening. It's emphasized for them. So you should shorten, but you should not combine. But Ibn Hazm considers shortening to be an obligation. You must shorten the prayers, according to him. But the majority will say shortening the prayers would be preferable. Combining the prayers, unless you are moving. So you're combining because you're moving. You're combining because you're going to board a flight, or you're combining because you were aboard a flight and then you just landed. Stuff like this. But combining when you reach your destination is suboptimal, not preferable. They also mentioned for things that are preferable, rukhas that are preferable to avoid, the utterance of words of disbelief. Utterance of words of disbelief, they mentioned this as a preferable to avoid. Now, al-Tufi rahimahullah, al-Tufi was a genius, but he had his own issues sometimes, but generally speaking, he is really a genius. So Tufi rahimahullah said he wondered why al-Ashab, the Hanbali fellows, consider this utterance of words of disbelief to be disliked or suboptimal when it will save your life. So why are you not saying it's an obligation? Just like you said, it's an obligation to break your fast. It's an obligation to, well, that, certainly they will have rebuttals. So they will say that ultimately it is, to refrain from utterance of words of disbelief will show, the commitment of the believers, will frustrate the disbelievers and show the commitment of the believer and things of that nature. So they will mention reasons why they would prefer for someone to die over to other words of disbelief, like Ammar ibn Yasir. So they will say that Khubayb and Ammar ibn Yasir. Ammar ibn Yasir uttered the words of disbelief, and Khubayb refused, and he was basically regarded as superior among the Muslims, or at least this particular act of his was regarded as superior among the Muslims. They will disagree. There is room for disagreement here. There is room for disagreement here, whether if someone is basically is, well, if someone utters the words of disbelief to save their life, what they did is permissible by agreement. Permissible by agreement. Is it superior or inferior? That is the point of discussion here. Permissible by agreement. Superior or inferior? That is the point of discussion. In the Hanbali madhab, what is it? Superior or inferior? Inferior. Tufi disagrees, but the position in the madhab is that inferior. It's inferior. Then there are these issues that they disagree over, whether it's better to take the rukhsa or not. Wiping over the khuffain, for instance, wiping over footwear, to wipe over footwear, is it permissible? And certainly al-Jawrabain is another issue. So wiping over al-Jawrabain is another issue, because what are the Jawarib and all of that discussion. In the Hanbali madhab, you could likely wipe over the modern Jawarib, because they stay on your foot. You can walk in them. You don't need to hold them with anything. They just stay on your foot, and you can walk on them. They don't require in the Hanbali madhab that they would be impermeable to water. In the Hanbali madhab, they do not require that the socks would be impermeable to water. So, and whatever madhab you are, you could follow this concession from the Hanbali madhab if it brings about ease for you, regardless of your madhab. So wiping over, but the discussion here is what they mention is khuf, because that's a point of the agreement among them. We wipe on in fact, they sometimes mention this from Aqaid Ahl Sunnah. Of course, it's not part of the Aqidah, but they mention certain things in Aqaid that are not part of creed to basically distinguish Ahl Sunnah from others. When something distinguishes Ahl Sunnah from others, they sometimes mention it in the books of Aqaid, even though they are not Aqaid, just because of the distinction. So, because this distinguishes Ahl Sunnah from Shia, they mention it in the book of Aqaid, wiping over the khuf. These are the leather socks. So this would be a matter of disagreement. Washing is better or wiping is better is a matter of disagreement. And we have statements from an Imam Ahmad that would indicate that that you should not say washing is better. You should not say washing is better than wiping. The advancement of the so likely wiping. So Imam Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, what is better is عدم التكلف. What is better is to not عدم التكلف. What is better is to be spontaneous about it, like to not go out of your way to put on socks or to remove the socks. So if the socks are off, you wash. If the socks are on, you wipe. That's it. So عدم التكلف, because this is a rukhsa. So it is not like you have to diligently basically seek it out. And at the same time, you don't have to take off your socks, because the Prophet did not take off his footwear when, just to wash his feet, and he wiped. So be spontaneous about it without takalluf, and you should be fine. Advancing the payment for zakah is also another matter of disagreement. Advancing the payment of zakah, what is preferred? And it seems that in the madhab they prefer not to advance it. They prefer not to advance it, so that you come to like your zakat due date and figure out how much exactly you need to pay, and you pay it on your zakat due date, and so on. However, by agreement, it's permissible, and certainly if you need to do it, you should do it, because there are oftentimes opportunities to pay zakat, and then when your zakat due date comes, you would be scratching your head, what should be prioritized, and so things come up throughout the year where you feel the need to give some of your zakat. So advancing your zakat for up to 1 year, and according to some, for up to 2 years, is permissible and good. Finally, it's preferable to refrain from using exemptions when they are difficult to distinguish from haram. So here, it would be certainly, according to all of them, preferable to avoid concessions and dispensations when they are difficult to sort out from haram. Because that would be the wara. Wara is to avoid, that which causes you doubt. تدع ما يريبك إلى ما لا يريبك. To leave that which causes you doubt, that which does not cause you doubt. إن الحلال بين وإن الحرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات. So, yeah. رحمكم الله. So next time, inshallah, we'll start by talking, next time we'll talk about hardships and what do we mean by hardship, which hardship would entail, would warrant, would call for or warrant concessions. Inshallah, this will be discussed next time, and we will begin asbab al-takhfif and causes for concessions next time, inshallah. So we'll have, let's say, 14 minutes until 9:15 and come back at 9:15, inshallah.